The Latin American and Caribbean region has about 27.5 million micro, small, and medium enterprises, of which 26.2 million are micro enterprises. Micro and small businesses are the lifeblood and largest contributors of growth, innovation, and employment to these regions. Not that different from any other part of the world, but they have suffered a great blow, especially due to this pandemic. One of the greatest contributors, customer acquisition and retention. Today we chat with Udhaya Kumar Padmanabhan, abbreviated as UKP, yes, very long, as he is known in the design world. Udhaya currently leads design delivery and design operations at Designit, helping global clients craft human-centered experiences that unlocks business values. Today we discuss design, leadership and operations, the characteristics of a great design leader, and what are the factors when deciding on creating a design team or design
So,
unit,
welcome,
especially
Udaya,
for small
to
businesses.
this
So let's get
conversation.
started.
We're very happy to have you here. And I would like you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Suzette, first of all, good morning, and thanks for having me here. Super excited. My name is Udhaya Kumar Padmanabhan. Pretty long name. Indians are notorious for having very long names, and some of them call me UKP. So my name is actually an abbreviation in the industry, and I've been a designer all my life, and this is my 25th year as a practicing designer. Uh, yeah, by academics, I had nothing to do with design, to be honest. I did math, stats, and computer science as a triple major, but I've been always a designer from the get-go. And currently, I'm part of the global leadership of one of the top 10 experience innovation agencies on the planet called Designit. I I run a fantastic award-winning team of designers and researchers and strategists and all of that. I've been with this company for like four years now. I also take care of design ops, design delivery, design leadership, and I'm also a practicing designer. Like I said, I also work on projects. So that's pretty much me in a nugget. Yeah, my career has taken me across the globe. I've worked across continents, been part of many successful exits, and I have built and sold a couple of my own startups. So that's pretty much all my 25 years of professional, journey in probably under a minute.
What do you like doing for fun?
So this is fun. Every day I check into work and I pull in probably 12, 14 hours, and I'm able to do that constantly, consistently, simply because I don't look at it as a job or a career. I may sound philosophical, but that's not the intent. What brings me to work, what excites me to work is the kind of stuff that I do, the kind of problems that we solve, the kind of people that you coach. And also, it gives me a lot of opportunities to pay it forward. I wasn't what I am when I started 25 years back. I had the right people, I was in the right place, right time. Of course, I had humility, I had curiosity, and most important thing, I always challenged myself. I did not compare me to anybody else and all of that. So all of this has held me in good stead, and that's exactly the framework and template that I actually apply when I mentor people, when I coach people. I also train, I also teach in a couple of institutions as pro bono. So this is pretty much my framework. So it's all
Okay,
fun.
wonderful.
Yeah.
It looks like that based on your expressions. I love that.
Yeah.
So let us go into the subject matter, design. What is design when we speak about it in the context of an organization?
Okay. So even before organization, for me, design is as simple as about a set of tools, methodologies, all of that, if you will. Design is a thing, is a very important thing that basically solves problems that the human race. We can only talk about human race for now, right? It's basically a problem solving uh, subject or topic or domain, and people semantics, right? But for me, design is something that actually helps you solve problems and move towards bettering some things which could always be better. So part two of your question, how does design sit within businesses and organ? Yeah, today businesses are, whether they like it or not, 10 years back, software was eating the world, is what they said, and software is still eating the world. Right now, everybody wants software that can eat the world or anything, but people want optimal experiences. People want everything like yesterday, instant gratification, and people want it when they want it, where they want it, how they want it. So that's a lot, right? It's like a very complicated set of asks that probably all the 7 billion of us actually expect and aspire, because as a human race we also have evolved, right? I mean, we were progressed the last the progress that we made in the last 20 years, probably we had not made it in the previous 100 years, right? So design enables businesses and organizations to actually deliver, I wouldn't even say delightful, I would simply say optimal experiences across the board. Whether it be the experience that you have engaging with a nurse in the emergency room in a hospital or in an airline, or probably in a school. Basically, it's today it's the experience economy, right? So that's where design sits in.
Okay, so let us now talk about this company organization, because I'm sure you have had the opportunity to work with various sizes of businesses, of companies. Let us speak not too necessarily to the bigger companies, but let's say maybe to a smaller company. I think a lot of we're talking about the world economy where most businesses exist within the smaller company frame. What considerations would they need to give should they want to integrate design into their operations, their branding? What are the considerations?
Brilliant question. I think yeah, all, so like you said, right? Let's negate the bigger companies. I just want to remind all of us who are going to hear this, all big companies today were actually small companies when they started. None of them became like $1 billion or a multi-billion dollar company. Coming back to your interesting question, so even before what should they embrace and how should they go about? One of the biggest mindsets, if you will, in small micro SMEs and SMBs and small businesses, because these are the engine of economy, right? I mean, imagine a world only where you have like probably $100 billion companies and the rest of the business world doesn't exist. The world would be a different place. It is this, it is these small companies that actually keep the economic engine thriving. So one of the biggest deterrents that the founders and entrepreneurs of small companies have in their mind is they understand the importance of design today. Everybody understands it. That's the good part. The scary part, or the not so comfortable part, is they have a mindset that design is expensive, right? Now, I wouldn't call it expensive, but I would like them to look at it as an investment, and look at it as it's a function of their appetite. Now, a two people company cannot literally dream of engaging with one of the top 10 agencies unless we are willing to do something pro bono for them. Having said that, entrepreneurship is all about hustling, right? You don't need to go to an agency, or don't need to come to a guy like me. But as long as you're clear about the importance of design in your journey as an entrepreneur, I mean, they say, right, when the student is ready, the master shall appear. When the entrepreneur is ready, a lot of things, serendipity kicks in, and a lot of interesting thing happens. They understand design is important, but they always have this, kind of apprehension that, hey, I am actually running day to day. I'm hustling things. I have a payroll to look after. I have to pay my suppliers, and then somebody is coming and telling me about design. And there is a world there is, and unfortunately, our design community also is at fault. And I have no qualms in claiming this openly. While some of us are literally striving to actually make a living out of designing, some of us are really thriving. We are also wanting to expand on design, help people become designers. We are doing a lot of interesting stuff, but there is a small slice of that pie where there are a lot of self-proclaimed gurus. Maybe they would have read a couple of books about design. Maybe they would have read a few research papers, and overnight they actually become designers. And I know for a fact that such designers or such agencies also are the ones who actually go and literally con these small, really wanting, needing, you know, uh, businesses, and it leaves a bad taste in their mouth. And word spreads fast, right? So basically, it gives all of us as designers, as a community, a bad name. Hey, they're very arrogant. They have a chip on their shoulder. They're too expensive. And the ironical part is, we designers always begin with the big E. We speak about empathy. It's an overly misused word. And then unfortunately, a lot of wanting, needing small businesses that actually can make do and transform themselves exponentially with some small design interventions, right? They're not able to access it for all of this. So if I were to talk, let's say you are a small business owner, and if you were to ask me, hey, UKP, what should I do? Be very clear about what you want. Be very clear about what is the kind of time, money, energy, and resources that you want to spend. There is always someone, because design is all about working with constraints, right? there is always someone that will actually pop on your radar who's willing to do that. And there are multiple models. I may come and say, hey, Suzette, I'm willing to do this at 1/10 the cost that I would probably charge everybody, but hey, make me a co-creator in crime. Maybe when you hit your target, your business targets, give me a slice of the pie. Right? I keep telling everything except for taxes and death can be negotiable in life, right? So
Yes.
there's a lot of things that we designers can do. And at the same time, I think all the small companies should also realize that yes, design will not come for free. I fundamentally believe that great experiences are something that do not come for free. Now, if it is not free, whether it's $1, 1 cent, $100, $100 million, that is not the point. You need to pay to get the results. Now, how you're going to pay, what you're going to pay is a different thing. But hey, do not have these apprehensions that all designers are arrogant, all designers are expensive. No, that's not how it is. So if you're ready, there are designers who actually are willing to help. And if you're hearing to this podcast and you are a small medium entrepreneur, and if you really want design help, please feel free to reach out to me. I may not be able to help you directly, but I can guarantee you that I'll connect you to somebody who can actually help you, you know, cross over your design needs with exactly the constraints that you have. That's an open promise that I can make on this podcast. I know I made a very godlike statement, but I'll still keep up my promise.
That's excellent. That's good when we can keep our promises. But you did touch on some of the characteristics that are necessary for the mindset of a design leader. You spoke of empathy, which is, I believe, at the forefront, at the top of the ladder when it does come to anything dealing with design, because we deal in with people holistically. What are some of the other qualities or attributes that you think a leader should have or should develop to really be receptive to a design or have it integrated within their business?
Interesting question. Again, a lot of self-claimed gurus and some real gurus, they all have their own list. So I think I can give my list. For me, at the top of the heap is humility. I'm not being philosophical. Yes, as you grow up the ladder and you get, you basically get recognized and you grow up the ladder and all of that. End of the day, all of us are flesh and bones. We are bound to think, that we have the Midas touch, but we all know what happened to Midas in the end, right? So you need to be kind of humble. It's a hard thing to practice, but I think reflection helps. I, for one, maybe if you'd have met a UKP 15 years back, the version of a UKP 15 years back, I was everything. I was arrogant. I was headstrong. I always used to think that I'm one of the best designers, which I was back in the heydays as a practicing designer when I was not a leader. But I also exhibited all of these entitledness because I'm a designer, I'm the cool guy, and all of that. Age sobers you down. So does experience. First and foremost, for a leader is to think, uh, you know, a leader, anybody can be a leader. Currently, one of the unfortunate things in the industry is people actually mistake leadership for, being a manager and being a manager for leader. Both are completely different things. You can still be an individual contributor and you can be a leader. Leaders lead from the front. Okay, leaders always say, "Let's go." Right? I remember a comic strip that very, aptly captured this. Right? Leaders basically say, "Let's go," whereas managers say, "Do this, let me go." Right? There's a huge, there's a very subtle thing, but there's a huge thing. You need to be humble. The other thing is, as you grow up the value chain and you become a leader, because with great power comes great responsibility. A significant amount of leaders become very complacent. I sit in my corner office, I attend 2, 3 meetings, I have a coffee, I do this, and basically responsibility and accountability is not mine. Right? I basically expect the team to do everything, and I basically am the leader. And the world actually is peppered with millions of leaders, if not anymore, as we speak. But we all know, end of the day, they'll get left away. You need to constantly reflect. You need to constantly calibrate, and you move from what is in it for me to what is in it for my team. When you start working for your team, when you start troubleshooting, you have to be an exceptionally great listener and a facilitator to become a leader. Rest of it, there are tomes written about 10 effective leadership skills, 21 things to do, a leader. All of this is fine. I'm not saying those don't work or they do work, but I think bare bone as a leader, You need to you need to really wrap your head around the fact that, hey, you have become a leader because you have in some form or fashion exhibited a lot of these things. You fight for a great cause, you fight for your team, at the same time you understand why your team is able to do it or not. End of the day, you are a facilitator, right? So much so you can think of yourself as a janitor. I mean, everybody says janitor comes and cleans my floor and goes, but let's remember, if that person doesn't do that, we will not have clean floors or clean toilets or clean rooms, right? It takes a lot of humility and grit to do what we do. You have to be humble. And one more thing, complacency. You need to stay abreast of what's happening in your domain. For example, designers, I need to know what's happening in the design world as we speak. Otherwise, there'll be a huge disconnect between what I probably might bring to the table and what the current generation of my designers are bringing, right? And there's this famous water cooler joke. That guy is old school. Maybe he designed it 20 years back and he has no clue. He comes from a world where there was no Twitter, where there was no Facebook, and where there was no, Instagram. So
Yeah.
I've heard these conversations. Be humble. Don't slip into, complacency. Keep yourself sharp. Keep your knife sharp. And you know what? Look at everything as a design problem to be solved. Don't take it personal. Everything is a design problem to be solved, actually, if you look at it. Right from, should I have coffee in the morning, or should I have, tea in the morning, or should I have probably a glass of water, to how do I get my designers to deliver what they deliver, and build an environment for them that is very open, that's very supportive, so that they do best, and we basically get the best out of them, and you rinse and repeat. So that would be my very, very, fundamental building blocks of leadership, and in simple English. I mean, otherwise we could get into a lot of stuff, but I thought, as long as you exhibit these three key traits, you don't need to go and fight for leadership. Leadership will find you.
Exactly. Thank you for this perspective. Uda, can we now speak about how to operationalize design? Can you lead us in that discussion, please?
Absolutely. So I think, okay, actually, interesting question. So there are two ways in which you operationalize design. One is from a project specific, program specific construct. Like, let's say you come to me and you say, hey, I'm in this business. I have this business problem, and I know that this can be solved through design. Can you help me? You and I connect, and we figure out what is your problem, or what are your goals and objectives, and basically we come up with a creative brief. We agree on what is the ask and the task and all of that, and then that's one form of design operationalization, where you take a possible opportunity and actually convert that into a project and a program for the success of the business. And we basically bill you, and we are in the business of helping other businesses use design, right? So from that lens, we call it, at least we call it, design realization. From an idea to somebody, some concept to some fanciful thinking, we actually bring that to life. So depending on what kind of a problem that you're solving, we basically we actually start on a path which is multi-step process. So at least in Designit, one thing that we are extremely insistent on is anything and everything that we do has to be based in research, grounded in research. We could run a 8 week research project, or a 8 day research project, or a 8 hour research project. We actually do research. We ground everything, we analyze and synthesize. We may not do primary research, we may not do research in all its glory, but we do some form of research. We will get back to you as the customer and the customer stakeholders and say, hey, here is what we found, here is what our inferences are, and here is how it maps to what you are trying to achieve. We actually get alignment with that. With that becoming the baseline, then we actually move towards actually solving for the problem from the lens of what design is needed. You may need UI UX on one side, or probably you need a service design intervention where there is no screen involved, but you'll simply come and say, I have a fantastic restaurant, but in the last 6 months, I see my footfalls actually falling by 50%. I have the same Michelin 3-star chef. I have the same fantastic award-winning crew. I serve one of the best meals in St. Lucia, but my business is going down, and
Yeah.
and that's like a mystery, right? So we get
Yes.
in, we figure out all of the stuff, we research, we do service design, we use systems and tools and methods of service design. We come back to you with revised journeys and intervention points. We actually test it out, and voila, you're happy. You basically figured it out. Now, then there are companies which come and say, I want to build this enterprise thing. I want to build this cool mobile app, or I want to build something. So we do research on that side. We try to understand what is the domain, what is your requirement, and eventually we go and we basically create all those fancy experiences which will get deployed on your desktop, your tablets, and your mobile. This is business as usual. Now, there is this business of running design businesses, right? And that is called DevOps today. Yes, it is slowly becoming popular, and most of the companies that actually run large scale design teams, large design teams at scale, actually have started to recognize that you actually need someone or a team to manage the design team itself, and that is called DevOps. It's basically short form for design operations. So it actually covers the entire gamut of what kind of people to hire, when to hire, what kind of people do we deploy and what types of projects, what is their career progression plan, what are the different other design aspects that we can develop as capacity and capability within the studio, how can we help our sales partners or customers and all of them to actually constantly use design as a lever to actually take them from where they are to technically where they're supposed to be. And you can actually consider design DevOps as a grand culmination of somebody who's been there, done that in design. The best thing that he or she could actually do is actually look out and pursue a career of design ops. You actually can take a design team and scale it to the next levels. And then there is a world that talks about level of design maturity in an organization. Right, from design does not exist to I have a fully blown design organization, and that itself is a business within a business. And DevOps is something that actually helps to run that business as a well-oiled engine day in and day out. So in a very simple, if I were to encapsulate that in a very simple sentence, DevOps people are the guys who all keep the lights on every design project, on every design studio, always on. Think of it that way.
Okay, well, let's talk about this in a different way now. Let me present you a scenario. We have companies who have very functional areas, marketing, accounting, warehouse management, and so on. Within them, of course, you would have maybe the practice of design without being aware that that is what it is. Because you're talking about maybe the service design, you do process engineering, you have to make sure that your processes are fine tuned and there's value added at every point and so forth. So within those functional areas, there's design. What would you suggest now that the organization does to fulfill a design management approach? Because you see, you may have to extract maybe the talent that exists within these functional areas to fulfill that unit of design, or you may have to recruit. So in a situation like that, where of course you're talking about operationalizing it, um, and you have that existing structure, yes, you have the mindset to understand what it is. What guidance would you give for that situation, that scenario?
Absolutely. So the good part is in your hypothetical situation, this company that has finance and operations and warehouse and supply chain actually has some designers in the organization doing whatever they're doing in an unstructured, informal way. Right. But they do understand that for them to move to the next levels of the game and or play, they're basically saying we need to do something about it. That's what I informed from your thing, right? That is half the battle won. Acknowledging that I have a problem or I need to seek help itself is half the battle won. My advice to that company at that point in time is that's why I spoke about this design maturity cycle in my answer to the previous question. So yeah, you start at the lowest step. If you look at it, multiple steps, you are at zero. There's no design at all. Then probably one would be like, I have one or two designers, but that's what my maturity is. The next one is I have a bunch of designers. I have a very, very small design team, but they actually cater to a large set of different divisions and all of that. Maybe I should scale. My fundamental advice would be formalize design exactly as one of those departments. You have a finance department, you have an operational department, you have supply chain, you have warehouse. have the intent to carve out a design function. It could be like with 2 people or 3 people, but give it the identity and the respect it deserves, as as a block in your organization chart, which means you'll have to come up with budgets, you need to identify the people and all of that. Once you get that, depending on your business objectives and how your company is scaling, in proportion to that, you basically scale up your design team. Now, at some point in time, you may not have a design team which had only, say, UI UX designers. At some point in time, you may find that, hey, I actually need to have a couple of anthropologists, ethnographers, or researchers, right? So you get them into the mix, and then later you say that, hey, we actually support, the design team supports, all kinds of communication pieces that I as a company am, broadcasting to the world. Maybe I need a couple of copywriters. Hey, I think now we have moved from service design, and I want design team to actually have a seat at the table when I decide the strategy of my organization, and then probably you may get in somebody who's very good at strategic design. So basically, acceptance, acknowledgement of the fact that I need to formalize design as a function within my organization. And once I agree to that, figure out the checks and balances of, should I be a 10 people design team or should I be a 20 people design team? And we all know how talent pool is managed in companies. Depending on how I'm scaling, depending on how I'm growing, and forecasted values, you actually build your team around. And basically, you need to get an exceptionally great, I wouldn't say great, exceptionally good leader to actually run that design team. Think of it like a startup within this business, right? You're doing it for the first time. Failure is not an option, but you have to fail fast to figure out what works and what doesn't work. Exactly the
Right.
reason why you need to get somebody who's been there, done that, and who can help you build this, design pillar of your organization. And typically, it takes about, in my mind, my past experience, it typically roughly takes about 18 to 36 months to actually formally move from I did not have design at all as a function to today I can proudly say I have my design team. Now that design team may be 4 people or 40 people, that doesn't matter, but I do have a formal design function. And then it scales and expands, and it's basically history repeats itself. People move, people come in, and that's how it's business as usual. I hope that answered your question.
Oh no, you definitely answered the question in totality. Yes. So now that you have a design team, how would you better be able to serve your target audience? Let us see, talk about that now.
Interesting. The fact that my products or services or whatever I'm offering as a business to a large, pool of existing customers and a very large, total addressable market is what makes you think that I need to get into the strategy of, formalizing a design team. So you may be in products or services, depending on whatever you are in, you actually make design equally responsible for the success of whatever you're offering to the market, right? They are not an afterthought. More in most companies, as we speak today, also in specific geographies, design is treated as an afterthought. I may have 400, 500, engineers and 100 salespeople and all of that. I'll have 2 designers. And these designers end up designing right from stickers to T-shirts to mugs to whatnot, and they simply do not get time to focus on the product or the services that is in question. Right? That's pretty much companies with zero design maturity. Now that we have set up a design team and we have a team, we actually make them equally responsible for the success of whatever we are offering in the market. Now, that could be achieved in multiple ways. If you have a physical product, I may have a team of, physical, I may have industrial designers and designers who actually design. Let's say you're in the business of, selling kitchen equipment, blenders and mixers and juicers and all of that. You need a design team that understands consumer behavior, understand the trends, understand what the competition is doing, because end of the day, it is a commoditized market. You're not the only one selling a mixer across the world. So they need to have that sense of curiosity, research, competitive intelligence, and they need to have an open access to the executive leadership where they come and say, you know what, this largest selling mixer that we are selling in St. Lucia, it's all good, but here is the new design that we think we should actually do for the following reasons, and we can guarantee you that it is going to hit, influence your revenues by 4x or 5x. So that's what businesses also expect. So there's a huge divide between what businesses want and what designers think it should happen, which is actually a bloodbath. Designers do not want to understand business. Designers just want to solve for some problems and create some cool stuff and win awards and then repeat. But hey, the business is the one, so the business is the one that's paying us at the paychecks, right? So that's
Yes.
the language that designers also need to understand. And once that's why the maturity of the person who leads that and the type of people that you're bringing in. And yes, let me tell you, when you formalize a design team within your organization, you cannot be penny wise, pound foolish. Design is slightly expensive as opposed to probably getting a supply chain person or or something else. I'm not belittling the other career streams, but design is expensive because we all know, right? You invest $10 on design, it is guaranteed if you get the design right, you're probably getting $100 worth of returns, right? So design is expensive. Designers are also kind of expensive, but because you're paying them top dollars, make them more than responsible for business outcomes. Otherwise, you'll simply end up running a art studio, and you'll be burning your cash. So let me pause and see if that answers your interesting question.
Definitely. And now it's leading me to one of our last questions. What do you see the future of design to be?
Okay.
I'll give you a timeline, like 5 to 10 years.
Okay. Okay. I'll take 5 to 10 years. In fact, that is actually also a specialized thing in design called speculative design, right? And the word speculative is kind of misleading, but that's what you do. You speculate short term, mid term, and long term, and exactly the thing 0 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, and it is a thing. And as a studio, I'm actually very proud to say my organization has done some fantastic body of work in that field, right? Right from speculating and forecasting the future of water to the future of probably urban cities and mobility and all that. I cannot disclose beyond that, but let me tell you, we have worked on some fantastic things, and we've been on this for like a couple of years now. We didn't start yesterday. So interesting question. I just wanted the audience to know that that is also a specialized area in design. Maybe you're good at seeing patterns and connecting the dots in reverse. And for me, the future of design is fantastic. I keep telling this. Interestingly, I've been telling this more often than not in the last year or so. But I may be making a controversial statement, but that's okay. The future of design is fantastic, but the future for designers is very bleak. The reason I'm telling this is this: design as we know, design as I knew, design as the next generation of designers that I mentored and coached who are practicing today is changing just like technology. Technology used to change every 6 months, but design did not change at the speed at which technology changed. Today, design is changing. We are moving from a world of clicks and swipes to voice, right? So I keep telling people, maybe 2, 3 years, 5 years down the line, some of the best user interfaces and user interactions are the ones where there are no screens, there are no clicks, right? Voice is a big thing. Voice interface design. People have made it. People call it VUI, voice user interface. And yeah, I mean, you guys are very notorious for trivial, coming up with fancy things, but it is a real thing. What is the best way in which I can actually design a voice interaction between a human and a machine, between a human and a design? So no, it's no more you fire your Photoshop and you get a design system in place and you create all of this fancy buttons and all of that and wow, right? Because you do not have a canvas. Your canvas is thin air. And then we're talking about a connected world, smart devices, and all of that. So that's why I keep saying the opportunities for there is no better time to be a designer. Trust me. But for you to be really a designer and to make a living out of it, design as we know needs to be shelved. We have to unlearn things, and we need to learn a lot of things. With most of the things getting automated with artificial intelligence and machine learning coming on, all of that, nobody's expecting you to be a hack. Nobody's expecting you to understand those algorithms and AI and ML, but you need to understand how that works and why are they doing what they're doing. Otherwise, the ones who will actually acknowledge this, invest their own time and energy in developing those muscles, will keep growing and growing. For those who are going to sit and not do some things and think that I will be a UI UX designer all my life, I will be a service designer all my life, or I'll be a researcher all my life, I'm telling you, maybe it's time for you to double up on your Netflix subscriptions, because very soon you're going to sit and basically watch endless flicks. You may not even have a job. So
Right.
the next 5 10
Yes.
years, design is going to, I mean, design has become kind of omnipresent, pervasive across the board, but the impact areas for design is completely changed. Today, there is nothing on the world that you can actually say design has nothing to do with it. So we designers also have to evolve at the speed with which technology and life in general is actually changing. Simple, as we leave, I know this is the last question as we leave. If I were to ask designers, assuming 10 years down the line, flying cars are going to become reality, okay? What is the best traffic management system for flying cars? Barring research labs and some smart people who are actually forecasting that should happen, I don't think most of the current day designers are even thinking about it, right?
No, you're
We, we guys are lazy. We will cross the bridge when we get there. No, you have to start constantly thinking what happens next. So I know I gave some controversial answers, but I'll still stick to it. To recap, the future of design is fantabulous. The future for designers are bleak unless and until you basically acknowledge that and you start spending all your time and energy in getting yourself acquainted with not just design. Don't be tunnel vision. Seek and understand different domains: aerospace, healthcare, manufacturing, governments. You need to understand how these things work so that you can actually solve for problems when it comes to your plate.
thank you, Daha. That is such a wonderful contribution. It has been a wonderful experience with you. Would you like to leave like a few words for our audience?
Well, okay, so yeah, whoever you are, wherever you are, and if you're listening to this, thank you for spending the current time hearing to us, because yeah, you could have gone to Amazon and Netflix and all of that. I thank you for spending this time. I hope you will hear our entire conversation. If you're a designer, I think I've given very unsalted versions of what design is, how influential design is, what are the downsides. If you're not a designer, but if you're probably curious about design, or you're planning to be a designer, uh, fear not. This is the reality. But I think you guys should be lucky that there are people like us who actually you know are willing to help people reach out to us. Like I said, it's an oxymoron. Design, the future of design is brilliant. And if you are wanting to pursue a career as a designer, there will be no better time than this. But it doesn't come easy. You have to invest, you have to learn, and last but not the least, design is craft. You don't become a designer overnight. You need to constantly refine your craft, and that's when you move from an apprentice to a master craftsman, right? So good luck to you. Thanks for listening in. And yes, I'm assuming Suzette will share my LinkedIn ID. Feel free to connect to me. Feel free to hit me up. And yes, I generally answer all of the things that come my way. A response is guaranteed from me, and hoping that this small, short conversation, interesting conversation that me and Suzette had, at least makes you pause and reflect, if not anything else. And that would be my 2 cents to all of your listeners, Suzette. And hey, we should do more often than this. There are multiple topics that we need to talk, but we'll do that later.
Look, I don't think there's anything more that I have to say. All I have to say now is goodbye, our audience, and thank you for joining us. Until the next time.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Wow, this has been a packed session. Thank you, Udhaya or UKP, for spending this valuable time with us. I mean, this was amazing. And to all our viewers, thank you for watching. Remember, user experience is life. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow us for future updates. Bye.